The crystalline spires of the Astralise Imperial Palace pierced the violet sky of Lumaria Prime, their surfaces refracting the light of 3 moons into countless rainbow patterns. Within the Grand Reception Hall, Ambassador Thomas Blackwood fought to maintain his diplomatic composure as he witnessed something no human had ever seen before: Queen Lyra Celestis of the Astralise Empire, entering in her full ceremonial regalia. The Queen's appearance defied conventional description. Her skin shifted like liquid mercury, reflecting and refracting light in impossible ways. A crown of living crystals hovered above her head, each facet containing what appeared to be a miniature galaxy. Her movements were so graceful they seemed to bend space itself. So, her voice resonated with harmonics that made the crystal pillars sing, "The myths of Earth are true after all." Thomas bowed deeply, his well-tailored diplomatic suit a stark contrast to the ethereal fashions of the Astralise court. "Your Majesty honors us by granting this audience." "Honors you?" A ripple of amusement passed through her mercury-like skin. "Until recently, we believed humans were nothing more than legends. Stories of beings who achieved space travel while still bound by organic forms. Primitives who reached the stars through brute force rather than evolutionary transcendence." The surrounding courtiers, all displaying varying degrees of the same mercury skin transformation, tittered with barely concealed disdain. Thomas maintained his diplomatic smile, though his brown eyes sparkled with determination. "Yet here we stand, Your Majesty. Perhaps there's more than one path to the stars." Queen Lyra descended from her floating throne, her movement creating waves in the very fabric of reality. The courtiers fell silent as she approached Thomas, studying him with eyes that seemed to contain entire nebulae. "Indeed. Your kind fascinates us, Ambassador. You've achieved faster-than-light travel without shedding your biological limitations. You've built an interstellar civilization while still experiencing emotions, still sleeping, still eating." She circled him slowly. "Still dreaming. We find our limitations inspiring, Your Majesty. They drive us to innovate, to overcome, to dream bigger than our bodies." The Queen stopped directly in front of him. "Show me." Thomas blinked. "I'm sorry. Show me these dreams of yours. Your people have requested trading rights, diplomatic relations, cultural exchange. Prove to me that humans have something worth exchanging." "A challenge, then." Thomas took a deep breath, reaching into his jacket pocket. The courtiers tensed, but he slowly withdrew a small holographic projector, primitive by Astralise standards, but it would serve. "On Earth, we have a tradition called dance, Your Majesty. It's how we turn our limitations into art." He activated the projector. The image of a ballet performance sprang to life between them, Swan Lake, performed by the best dancers Earth had to offer. The Queen watched, transfixed, as the dancers moved with precision and passion, telling a story through nothing but movement and music. "Fascinating," she whispered. "They're bound by gravity, yet they defy it. Bound by muscles and bones, yet they create beauty from those constraints." She waved a hand through the hologram. "But these are recordings. Can you demonstrate?" Thomas hesitated only for a moment. He pocketed the projector, bowed formally to the Queen, and extended his hand. "May I have this dance, Your Majesty?" The court erupted in shocked whispers. Queen Lyra's skin rippled with patterns of light that might have been surprise, or amusement. "You would dare touch the Celestial Queen? I would dare to show you that limitations can be beautiful." For a long moment, the only sound was the humming of the crystal pillars. Then, to everyone's astonishment, Queen Lyra placed her mercury-like hand in his. "Your body temperature, your heartbeat, your breathing, they're all so dynamic," she observed as Thomas gently guided her into a traditional waltz position. "How do you maintain any sort of rhythm with so many variables?" "That's the beauty of it," Thomas smiled, beginning to lead her in the dance. "We don't fight the variables. We embrace them. Let me show you." What followed would be written about in both human and Astralese historical records for centuries to come. The human ambassador, in his simple organic form, dancing with the transcendent celestial queen. Her liquid metal skin reflecting their movements in endless patterns, his steady heartbeat gradually synchronizing with the crystal pillar's resonance. As they moved together, something unprecedented occurred. The queen's normally perfect control over her transformed body began to slip, her mercury-like skin occasionally reverting to something more organic, more real. And in those moments, her eyes didn't contain galaxies, they contained wonder. When the dance finally ended, Thomas stepped back and bowed deeply. The court held its breath, waiting for their queen's reaction. Queen Lyra stood motionless for a moment, her form fluctuating between transcendent and organic states. When she spoke, her voice had lost some of its harmonic resonance, becoming more naturally melodic. Perhaps, she said softly, we have spent so long transcending our limitations that we've forgotten what we're transcending for. She turned to address the court. The humans will have their trading rights. And Ambassador Blackwood will remain as their permanent representative. As the court buzzed with excitement and concern, Thomas caught a glimpse of something remarkable. Just for a moment, the queen's skin had fully reverted to its natural state, a beautiful azure blue. She met his eyes and smiled, a genuine expression that had nothing to do with cosmic transcendence and everything to do with simple joy. Sometimes, the most powerful diplomacy didn't need words at all. It just needed a dance. In the months following the historic dance between Ambassador Thomas Blackwood and Queen Lyra Celestis, the Astralese Imperial Palace had changed. Crystal-lined meditation chambers were repurposed into cultural exchange centers. The once silent corridors now occasionally echoed with human laughter and music, much to the traditionalists' dismay. Thomas stood at the window of his diplomatic suite, watching the 3 moons of Lumaria Prime paint the crystalline cityscape in shifting colors. Behind him, a small group of Astralese nobles struggled with arguably humanity's greatest challenge to their transcendent nature, eating solid food. The sensation is overwhelming, Lady Venna admitted, carefully bringing another spoonful of vanilla ice cream to her mercury-like lips. Like many Astralese, she had to consciously maintain a partially organic form to experience taste. How do humans process so much sensory input? That's actually the easy part, Thomas smiled, turning from the window. The challenge is stopping ourselves from eating the entire container. The small gathering was part of Queen Lyra's initiative to understand human culture beyond mere academic study. Each week, different members of the court would experience various aspects of human life, food, music, art, even sleep. The results had been fascinating, and sometimes hilarious. Ambassador, Lord Kieran called from his seat, his usually perfect mercurial form flickering with excitement, you must explain this brain freeze phenomenon. Several of us experienced a momentary neural shutdown after consuming the ice cream too quickly. Thomas suppressed a chuckle. That's actually a perfect example of what we discussed last week, how human limitations lead to unique experiences. The discomfort you felt? It's a warning signal from our bodies to slow down, enjoy the moment. Fascinating, a familiar voice chimed from the doorway. Queen Lyra entered, her form more organic than usual, though still maintaining an ethereal quality. Your species has turned even pain into a teacher. The nobles quickly rose and bowed, but Thomas noticed something different about their queen. Her movements were less fluid, more naturalistic. She had been spending more time in her organic form lately, particularly during their private diplomatic discussions. Your Majesty, Thomas bowed. Would you care to join our culinary experiment? Actually, Ambassador, I need to discuss a rather urgent matter. Her eyes, currently a deep azure rather than their usual cosmic swirl, held concern. The High Council has requests. The nobles quietly excused themselves, leaving Thomas alone with the Queen. As soon as the door closed, Lyra's perfect posture relaxed slightly. The traditionalist faction is growing restless, she said, pacing in a very human-like manner. They claim our cultural exchange program is causing evolutionary regression among the younger generation. Some have even started reverting to organic forms voluntarily. Thomas watched her pacing, noting how her feet actually touched the ground now rather than hovering. Is that necessarily a problem? You don't understand. Lyra turned to him, her skin flickering between mercury and azure. Our transcendence isn't just cultural, it's how we survived. Lamaria Prime's radiation levels would be lethal to purely organic beings. Our ancestors evolved these abilities out of necessity. Yet here you are, Thomas gestured to her increasingly organic form, seemingly unaffected. Lyra paused, looking down at her hands as they shifted between states. Yes, our scientists have been studying this. It seems our bodies remember how to adapt without maintaining full transcendence. We never needed to stay transformed constantly, we just thought we did. Cultural conditioning rather than biological necessity? Precisely. But this realization threatens everything our society is built upon. The traditionalists fear change, Thomas. They fear feeling. It was the first time she had used his given name. The significance wasn't lost on either of them. The High Council demands a demonstration, she continued, her form stabilizing into something between organic and transcendent. Proof that this cultural exchange benefits our civilization rather than weakening it. They've given us one standard month. Thomas moved closer, careful to maintain diplomatic distance despite their growing familiarity. Then we'll show them something unprecedented. A true fusion of human and astralese potential. What did you have in mind? Your people possess incredible abilities but restrict themselves to rigid, traditional applications. My people are endlessly creative but limited by our organic nature. He smiled. What if we combined a human art form with astralese abilities? Something new, something that could only exist through cooperation. Lyra's eyes widened, momentarily showing galaxies before returning to their azure hue. A performance? More than that. A demonstration of what we can achieve together. Your people's ability to manipulate light and matter, combined with human dance, music, and storytelling. His enthusiasm grew as the idea took shape. Not just entertainment, but a new form of communication altogether. The council would never approve such a radical display, Lyra said, but her skin was beginning to shimmer with interest. They don't need to approve. They just need to witness it. Thomas held out his hand, echoing their first dance. What do you say, Your Majesty? Ready to rewrite the rules of transcendence? Lyra looked at his offered hand, then back at his face. A smile spread across her features, a real one, organic and imperfect and beautiful. She took his hand. Ambassador Blackwood, I believe you're suggesting we start a revolution. Oh no, Your Majesty, he grinned. I'm suggesting we start an evolution. The experimental performance chamber deep within the Imperial Palace hummed with energy as Thomas watched the young astralese artists practice. Their mercury-like bodies flowed through the traditional movements of a human ballet while simultaneously manipulating light and matter, creating breathtaking displays that defied physics. Again, called Master Helene, one of the few elder astralese who supported their endeavor. Remember, don't fight the organic sensations. Let them guide your transcendent abilities. Thomas smiled as one young dancer successfully maintained a perfect fouette while her transformed body projected cascading waves of light that matched her movements. They were progressing faster than he'd hoped. An urgent knock interrupted the session. Captain Raven of the Imperial Guard burst in, her usually composed mercurial form rippling with distress. Ambassador, Your Majesty requires your immediate presence in the Strategic Command Center. Thomas's diplomatic instincts flared. The Strategic Command Center was off-limits to all non-Astralis. Something was very wrong. He found Queen Lyra surrounded by holographic displays, her form fully transcendent, a sign she was under stress. The displays showed a massive object approaching Lamaria Prime. The Void Collective, she said without preamble. They've finally decided to make their move. Thomas had heard whispers about the Void Collective, a mysterious civilization that had allegedly achieved transcendence through technological means rather than evolution. They viewed both humans and the Astrolese as evolutionary dead ends. How bad is it? Their world ship will reach our system within 48 hours. They've already broadcast their demands. Lyra's voice carried harmonic undertones of barely controlled anger. They claim our regression through human contact has destabilized the evolutionary balance of this sector. They're here to correct the imbalance. By force? By any means necessary. She gestured, and new holographic images appeared, records of previous Void Collective corrections. Entire civilizations reduced to their component atoms, restructured according to the collective's vision of perfection. Your Majesty, a counselor spoke up, perhaps if we severed ties with Earth dash. We will do no such thing, Lyra's form blazed with internal light. The humans have shown us that true evolution isn't about abandoning our origins, but understanding them. Captain Raven, show them. The guard captain projected new data, defense simulations. The Void Collective's technology neutralizes both our transcendent abilities and human conventional weapons. However, she highlighted a particular simulation. Our scientists believe a combination of both might be effective. Thomas studied the projections. Like our performance piece, harmony between organic and transcendent. Exactly, Lyra moved closer to the strategic display. But we'd need perfect synchronization between human tactical systems and our transformed matter manipulation. One mistake. Then we'll have to trust each other completely, Thomas finished. He turned to address the gathered Astrolese leaders. Your Majesty, honored council, let us show you what we've been practicing. Despite the crisis, he insisted they all come to the performance chamber. The young dancers were nervous but determined as they took their positions. What followed left even the most hardened traditionalists speechless. Human dance merged with Astrolese transcendence in ways that shouldn't have been possible. The dancers moved as one organism, their transformed bodies creating living architectures of light and matter while maintaining the emotional resonance of human movement. This isn't just art, Thomas explained as the performance reached its crescendo. This is a new form of neural physical synchronization. These dancers can anticipate each other's movements perfectly, organic and transcendent flowing as one. Like a battle dance, Captain Raven breathed, her tactical mind seeing the military applications. More than that, Lyra stepped forward, her form shifting between organic and transcendent as she watched the dancers. This is true evolution, not abandoning what we were, but building upon it. She turned to the council. This is how we'll fight the Void Collective. Not as separate species, but as a unified force. The next hours were a blur of preparation. The performance chamber was converted into a training facility. Human tactical officers arrived through emergency FTL channels, working alongside Astrolese matter shapers to develop hybrid combat techniques. Thomas found Lyra alone on the observation deck as the first line of defense ships moved into position. Her form was shifting rapidly between states, betraying her anxiety. Having second thoughts, he asked softly. About fighting? No. About changing everything my civilization believes in? Perhaps. She turned to him, her eyes swirling between azure and celestial. What if we fail? Then we fail trying to build something new, rather than fade away clinging to the old. He smiled slightly. Isn't that what evolution is all about? A proximity alarm blared. On the horizon, a massive shadow began eclipsing the 3 moons of Lamaria Prime. The Void Collective had arrived early. Lyra's form stabilized into something new, neither fully organic nor fully transcendent, but a harmonious blend of both. Well, Ambassador Blackwood, it seems the time for rehearsal is over. Indeed, Your Majesty. Thomas straightened his diplomatic uniform. Shall we show them our dance? The Void Collective's worldship cast an artificial eclipse over Lamaria Prime, its crystalline surface absorbing all light like a black hole given geometric form. In the Imperial Palace's transformed performance chamber, now a hybrid command center, Thomas watched the final preparations with carefully controlled anxiety. Neural synchronization at optimal levels, reported Lady Venna, her Mercury-like form now interwoven with human tactical interfaces. Around her, paired human and Astralese teams moved in perfect unison, their practice dance movements now carrying deadly purpose. First wave in position, Captain Raven announced. On the holographic display, the combined human-Astralis defense fleet took formation. Each ship now carried both species, their abilities and technologies intertwined in ways that had been impossible just days ago. Queen Lyra stood at the command platform center, her form a perfect balance between organic and transcendent states. The Void Collective demands our surrender, she announced, her voice carrying both human emotion and transcendent harmonics. They say our evolutionary experiment must end. Your Majesty, one of the traditionalist counselors stepped forward, his pure Mercury form reflecting the emergency lights. Perhaps we should consider dash. Show them, Thomas interrupted. All eyes turned to him. Show them what we've accomplished. Let them see exactly what they're facing. Lyra's eyes met his, swirling with both azure determination and cosmic power. She nodded. Open a channel to their command nexus. The massive display shifted, revealing the Void Collective's leadership, beings of pure energy contained within crystalline matrices, their forms painful to look at directly. Their voices came as mathematical harmonics that the translators struggled to decode. Your resistance is evolutionarily inefficient, they stated. Surrender now and we will ensure your species' proper advancement. In response, Lyra did something unprecedented. She began to dance. But this was unlike any dance Thomas had seen before. Her form shifted between states in perfect rhythm, each movement creating cascading waves of both physical and transcendent energy. The young dancers they trained joined her, their bodies weaving light and matter into impossible patterns while maintaining the raw emotional power of human movement. Thomas recognized the piece, Swan Lake, the same ballet he'd shown her during their first meeting. But transformed, elevated into something entirely new. The performance chamber's hybrid systems amplified the display, broadcasting it across all frequencies. This is our evolution, Lyra declared, her voice resonating with power as she danced. Not the abandonment of our organic nature, but its transformation through understanding and unity. The Void Collective's response was immediate and violent. Energy beams capable of disrupting both organic matter and transcendent forms lanced from their worldship. But they met something unexpected, the combined fleet moving in its own battle dance, human tactical precision merged with Astralese matter manipulation in ways their weapons couldn't counter. All units, execute formation beta, Captain Raven commanded. The defenders moved like a single organism, their ships weaving through space in patterns that echoed the dancers' movements. Each evasive maneuver was also an attack, each defensive shield harmonized with offensive capability. Impossible, the Void Collective's harmonics carried undertones of confusion. Your species are incompatible. This level of synchronization defies evolutionary law. No, Thomas stepped forward to stand beside Lyra as she completed her dance. It proves that your understanding of evolution is flawed. True advancement doesn't come from rejection of the past, but from building upon it. From unity, not division. The battle raged across the Lemurian system, a deadly dance of technology and transcendence. The Void Collective's superior weapons met an enemy they couldn't categorize, humans and Astralese moving as one force, each species' weaknesses covered by the other's strengths. In the command center, Thomas noticed something extraordinary. The Traditionalist Council members, who had once recoiled at human contact, were now working seamlessly with Earth's tactical officers. Their shared purpose had overcome centuries of prejudice. Their main weapon is charging, Lady Venna reported urgently. The world ship's surface was shifting, forming what looked like a massive aperture designed to channel unimaginable energy. They mean to force our evolution, Lyra's eyes widened in realization. To transform every organic and transcendent being in the system according to their vision. Thomas studied the tactical display, an idea forming. Your Majesty, remember what you said about your people's transcendence. How it wasn't about maintaining constant transformation, but about adaptation. Lyra caught his meaning immediately. Captain Raven, transmit these frequencies to all ships. When I give the signal, every astrolese is to revert to organic form for precisely 3 seconds. But the radiation dash, the traditionalist counselor protested. Will be absorbed by our human allies' shields, Thomas finished. Trust in our dance. The Void Collective's weapon fired, a beam of pure evolutionary force designed to rewrite the very nature of matter. But at that exact moment, every astrolese in the defense fleet shifted to organic form. The beam, calibrated for transcendent beings, passed harmlessly through them while human shields absorbed the excess energy. Now! Lyra commanded. The astrolese resumed their transcendent forms, but with a difference. They took the absorbed energy with them, transforming it through their unified dance into something new. The combined fleet moved as one, channeling the Void Collective's own evolutionary force back at them. But not as a weapon of change, as an offer of understanding. The world ship's surface rippled as its crystalline matrices were exposed to this new form of evolution, not forced advancement, but willing transformation through cooperation. Perhaps, the Void Collective's harmonics carried a new undertone, something almost like wonder. We have more to learn about evolution. 1 year after the Void Collective encounter, the Imperial Palace of Lamaria Prime had transformed beyond recognition. The once rigid separation between organic and transcendent spaces had disappeared, replaced by harmonious environments that served both forms of life. In the central garden, human children played alongside young astrolese, their laughter mixing with the crystalline chimes of transcendent joy. Thomas Blackwood stood in the newly constructed Unity Hall, watching final preparations for the anniversary celebration. The massive chamber represented everything they'd achieved, architecture that seamlessly blended human artistic sensibility with astrolese crystal manipulation. Living walls shifted between solid and ethereal states, responding to the emotions of those within. Admiring our handiwork? Queen Lyra approached, her form now permanently settled into the harmonious blend of organic and transcendent that she'd discovered during the battle. The cosmos still swirled in her eyes, but her smile was wonderfully, imperfectly human. Remembering where we started, Thomas replied. Did you ever imagine, when we first met, that we'd end up here? With humans and astrolese living together. The Void Collective joining our cultural exchange program. A new form of art that's revolutionizing both our societies. She laughed, the sound carrying both melodic harmonics and genuine warmth. Not in 1,000 years of evolution. The Void Collective's representatives were indeed present, their crystalline matrices now modified to interact safely with organic beings. They had become eager students of the human astralis dance, finding in it answers to questions their pure logic had never conceived. The latest research results came in, Lyra continued, gesturing to a holographic display. Our scientists have confirmed it, the new hybrid state isn't just sustainable, it's beneficial. The children born to this era will have capabilities we never dreamed possible. Thomas watched as a young astrolese girl demonstrated for her human friends, her form shifting fluidly as she created small light sculptures in the air. The human children responded with their own newly developed talents, subtle but unmistakable abilities to perceive and influence the energy fields the astrolese manipulated. Evolution through harmony rather than force, he mused. The Void Collective's greatest fear became their greatest teacher. Speaking of teaching, Lyra's eyes twinkled with both starlight and mischief. The Academy Board has approved our proposal. The first interspecies School of Transcendent Arts will open next season. The news brought a broad smile to Thomas's face. What had begun as a desperate performance to prove their worth had blossomed into an entirely new field of study. The hybrid dance they'd created now served as both art form and practical application, used in everything from space navigation to healing practices. The great doors of Unity Hall opened, admitting the evening's guests. Humans in formal wear mingled with Astralese in various states of transformation. Even some Void Collective members floated among them, their crystalline forms now decorated with organic-inspired patterns. Master Helene, now the lead instructor of Transcendent Dance, approached them with an excited shimmer in her mercury-like skin. "Your Majesty, Ambassador, they're ready to begin." The lights dimmed as the performers took their positions. Humans and Astralese moved together in the dance they'd created, but now with a new addition, Void Collective members providing crystalline harmonics that enhanced both the physical and transcendent aspects of the performance. A year ago, Lyra addressed the gathered crowd, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We faced a choice between clinging to our separate paths or risking everything to forge a new one together. Today, we celebrate not just our survival, but our transformation." The performance began, more beautiful than ever. Dancers shifted between forms as naturally as breathing, their movements telling the story of their people's journey. Human emotion and Astralese transcendence wove together, supported by the Void Collective's crystalline resonance, creating something that could only exist through their unity. Ambassador Blackwood, a young Astralese dancer, had approached during the performance, her form flickering with nervous energy. "Is it true that you and Her Majesty created this dance? That it all started with a single waltz?" Thomas glanced at Lyra, who was watching the performance with genuine joy, an emotion that would have been impossible for her to express in her purely transcendent form a year ago. "The dance was just the beginning," he told the young dancer. "The real creation was understanding that none of us have to be limited by what we were. That true evolution means growing together, not apart." As if hearing his words, Lyra turned to him. In her eyes, he saw both the cosmos and the simple warmth of companionship. She held out her hand, echoing that first fateful moment. "Shall we show them how it's done, Ambassador?" Thomas took her hand, feeling the unique texture of her hybrid form, neither fully organic nor fully transcendent, but something wonderfully new. "Lead the way, Your Majesty." They joined the performance, their movements telling their own story among the greater dance. Around them, the Unity Hall responded to their emotions, its walls shifting through colors and states that reflected the joy of their achievement. And in that moment, as humans and Astralese and even the Void Collective moved together in their great dance of unity, Thomas understood that they had discovered something profound. Evolution wasn't a linear path towards some perfect state. It was a dance, an endless waltz of change and growth and discovery. They had started with a single dance between a human diplomat and an alien queen. They had ended by rewriting the very nature of what was possible when different species chose to grow together rather than apart. As the performance reached its crescendo, the three moons of Lamaria Prime aligned perfectly outside the crystal windows, their light refracting through the Unity Hall in impossible patterns. It was a new dawn, not just for their civilizations, but for the very concept of evolution itself. And somewhere in the cosmic dance of light and shadow, organic and transcendent, past and future, they had found something greater than advancement. They had found harmony.